We're going to dissect emotional intelligence today. Emotional intelligence, I have to confess, years ago, I thought emotional intelligence was the ability of seeing each other's reactions and to speak properly. That's just my very superficial understanding of EQ or emotional intelligence. I was confronted and almost blamed for being a low EQ person for years. And then I started to look into this topic and through lots of painful experiences or confrontations, I started to realize this thing is really, really important in emotional intelligence. What is that? Then we'll go dive a little bit deeper. So you may see that from every topic that we talk about, we always want to go to the basic, always wanted to go back to the Merriam-Webster definition of the term. Emotional intelligence, without knowing what emotion, we cannot know what emotional intelligence is. So it is part of our consciousness. It is our emotion has to do with the spirit and our body, our physical actions. Our body has to do with our physical actions, and our thought is actually our mind. So emotion is one of the triangles that's very important, that we are pretty much dominated, if not all dominated, by emotion. Like I always share this chart in several of our sessions. This is our age-old reptile brain. It is the brainstem. It's our survival mechanism. But the limbic system, the mammal brain, controls our emotions. If this thing is overly active, this region is neocortex that handles our higher order thinking. The whole reason why we need to do meditation is to quiet down this part of the brain so we can access higher order thinking. In other words, limbic system, just like Serena's yellow lab, it's always seeking attention, always very reactive, always jumping. So that's why we call it Labrador brain, limbic system, Labrador brain. We wanted to tame our emotions. So emotion intelligence is the ability to recognize your emotions, understand what they're telling you, and realize how your emotions affect people around you. And there's several emotions. Some are good, some are bad, and like anger, like a jealousy, like depression, like a pride. They're all different emotions. And we talked about the emotions a little bit before. Different emotions actually have different connotations to us, and different emotions actually carry different energy to us. We all know that when you are in the guilt or in the sad and depression mode, you probably have very little energy to handle other things. But when you are in the love, gratitude emotions, you are sure in a much better mode to handle a lot of things. So it involves your perception of others and also your perception of yourself. And if you understand emotion, you will understand how other people feel. And this actually gives you a better interpretation and how to manage the relationships more effectively. So in other words, know thyself, like Socrates said, know thyself so you would know other people. Know your emotion. Emotions are very good indicators. And the emotional intelligence, according to Daniel Goleman is a very renowned psychologist, and he had this book called Emotional Intelligence. It was an all-time New York Times bestseller, and it's had millions of copies. You can grab a copy if you haven't done so. There's a 5 characteristics according to Daniel Goleman: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. According to my previous very superficial definition, none of this fit that definition. No wonder I was in a conundrum, a quagmire of being a low EQ for years. It has to do with self-awareness, self-regulation, being able to motivate, and empathetic and social skills. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is basically like a mirror, the ability to look inward, think deeply about your behavior. Not too much, of course. If you think about too much, then you become hypersensitive, then you become overly aware of your behaviors, then you stop caring too much about your behavior. And consider how it aligns with your moral standards and values. Let's say if you believe you have a set of moral standards and values, according to Steve Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, moral standards and your values should always be the compass to guide your behaviors, to guide your everyday actions. And you have a daily review to see, okay, those behaviors, am I in alignment or not? If I'm not in alignment, what can I do? What can I improve? What can I take measures to improve? If they're in perfect alignment, good, move on, go on, and repeat the process. And it gives you the ability to understand and control your own emotions and actions, and also help you to, you know, with the self-awareness that we will actually know what stage we're in and what kind of emotional state we're in. And we are able to identify the power of this emotion, and then we can actually shift it. I wanted to go just a little bit, just a little bit deeper. You have all heard about the term alchemy. Alchemy. So alchemy is the ability to turn lead into gold. But alchemy is actually more than that. Alchemy is a spiritual alchemy. It is the ability to turn from one state into another state, mental state. So from that, you become, let's just say you were overly angry, but through certain actions, certain self-talk, and through your self-awareness, you can turn that anger into whole serenity, into a peace of mind, into a total forgiving and loving state. That is ability. That is something not innate. We have to continue to practice and exercise that. And people with higher emotional intelligence, they're always self-aware. We all know that a lot of people, especially the high achievers, especially the top athletes, Hollywood actors, a lot of Fortune 500 top executives, they are very self-aware. And they understand their emotions and don't let their feelings rule them. In America, we all know that if you win about 51% or 53% of the vote, this president will be called as a landslide. You have a landslide support. What about the other 47? 47% of the country still hate you, still want you to fail. So you don't let other people's feeling to rule you. And also they're very confident because they know themselves so well. They're always confident. They're not going to be affected by other people's talking or a tweet or a social media posting or whatnot. Okay. And they are always very honest, very honest. They do not lie to themselves. They do not BS themselves. They wanted to take an honest look at themselves. They always take a journal. They always to give themselves a very, very candid and honest look, a self-diagnosis, what the state and what is this emotional state they're in. And actually, self-awareness, according to Daniel Goleman, it is the most important part of emotional intelligence. And another part is self-regulation. Just like Robin just said, a lot of times we may be in the autopilot mode very easily if we're not self-aware. We could be in autopilot mode just by a notification on our phone. Oh, YouTube, your favorite YouTuber just posted a new video with a very enticing topic or headline. Oh, I just want to see. I have to. Those things come out every single day. It's not uncommon. So the ability to control emotions and impulses, this is what we considered high emotional intelligence, and the ability to choose how you react. We have reactive mind. We also have analytic mind. Our reactive mind is not reasonable. It is always almost like a Labrador. It reacts to all kinds of temptations. It reacts to all kinds of external reactions. So we wanted to control it. And the Stoic thinking, I don't know whether you are familiar with this ancient Greek school of thinking, Stoic, is to divide our experience of the world into things which are realistically under our control and things which are not. This is pretty much like the Alcoholic Anonymous. In America, they have this famous serenity prayer. Oh Lord, please let me control the things I can control, and do not try to control the things I cannot control, and have the wisdom to tell both. This is a serenity prayer from the non-denominational, non-religious background of Anonymous. Their famous 12 steps program have helped a lot of recovered alcoholics. So there's Stoicism. Tim Ferriss has a very famous TED Talk about Stoicism. It's basically recognize what you can and cannot control. Can we control the presidency? Can we control the politics? Can we control Afghanistan? No. Can you control the economy? Can you control the environment? Not necessarily. However, you determine your reaction to a crisis. It is your interpretation to the symbol, to the situation. And also ignore people dominated by their own negative emotions. If you know for a fact this person is trying to suck you into their negative emotion, always to nag, it is your duty, it's your responsibility to basically not to be affected by people with negative emotions. And also it's about self-mastery. Master yourself and aim to be virtuous. Again, Stoicism is not religious. It's just a school of thoughts. Seneca and a lot of famous Greek philosophers, they practiced this thousands of years ago. And nowadays, they've been rediscovered by a lot of entrepreneurs. They learned a lot. As far as I know, the New England Patriots, they practice Stoicism. In other words, they embrace pain as pleasure, and they recognize what they can control and what they cannot control, and learn to move on. Yeah. So for what happens in the past, let it go, and we embrace the future. And people who self-regulate typically do not allow themselves to be too angry or jealous. They are almost emotionless to a degree, and they cannot be easily offended. And we all know that those on the road who are mostly easily to be offended, easily to stick out their middle finger and to do road rage are those who are not good at self-regulation. They are easily tempted to throw the fist and to even get them into trouble or even in jail. And they don't make but those with high EQ, with good emotional intelligence, they do not make impulsive, careless decisions. But some people, regardless of their educational background, regardless of their achievements or social status, some people still are impulsive and they make a lot of careless decisions. And that actually make a lot of people, make a lot of entrepreneurs or professionals into a different trajectory. And then think before they act. I know it sounds very easy. It's very hard. It's probably a lifelong lesson. I'm here to teach. No, I'm actually here to share. A lot of those stuff, I'm still in learning mode. I'm just a mover trying to combine those knowledge to you so we can learn together. Doesn't mean that I already master them. It is a lifetime learning thing. And they are thoughtful and are comfortable with change. Especially during COVID, we know this is a time of change. There's a lots and lots of things that we are not comfortable and because of the change. But people with this, they always know this only thing that never change is the change itself. And integrity is still very important. Integrity. I think integrity is still by far the best strategy to stick to. If you're honest, if you're trustworthy, you always stick to your moral standard, there's nothing you have to worry about it. There's nothing you need to lose your sleep with. Yeah, it is the best, by far the safest way to do it. Yeah, they have the ability to say no, of course, the boundary. They do not violate their moral code. They do not violate their own, try to please others, just to say yes. Then they feel miserable later. And motivation. This is a pretty misunderstood notion. Motivation is basically your initiative to do things, your level of initiative in setting challenging goals for yourself. Because we are a being of meaning, we're a being of goals. We need goals. When we do not have any goals, we lose our meaning. We are in the autopilot mode. We become pretty void, and even we could have depression. Your belief that you have the skills and abilities need to achieve those goals. This is part of the motivation too. And you need to have that awareness. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. Maybe now I do not have the skill set. I do not have the ability yet. But as long as I have the conviction, I can do it. I can eventually get there. And also it is the expectation. You know that as long as you do the job, you do the work, you do the homework, you will succeed. It's the faith in you combined with other two factors that you will be able to get there. And people with higher degree of emotional intelligence are very, very motivated. I have never seen a athlete or a high performance people that are not motivated. In a way, those people are very weird. They write goals in the morning, they self-talk, they get up very early, they write on their journals with crazy goals and sometimes even very naive in a way. However, those people are the ones who do things, are the ones who achieve things, not about material things, but actually make things happen. And they're willing to defer immediate results for long-term success. We all know that a marshmallow experiment, right? To prolong or to delay your immediate satisfaction, that is also the ability to motivate. And also part of it, I think, is a self-regulation. And I remember that marshmallow experiment, the children who did it, the only strategy that makes them successful was they did not pay attention to that marshmallow. They just divert their attention, their focus to other things, make it invisible, just like James Clear's strategy. They're not as strong-willed as other children. They just choose a different strategy. So they're highly productive as well. And they love challenges. The challenges to them are like goals. They're like those things. They instead of dread them. They're very effective in whatever they do. So we see motivated people in almost every aspect, on all walks of their lives. And so here, there's a simple formula that I found. This is from Michael Port. I like this. Not that this is end-all solution. This is a very good jumpstart questions. If you like, you can screenshot this. We can ask the 6 questions. What do I want? Not necessarily material things, because material things, eventually it has to be translated into an emotional state. You want to be happy. You want to feel good, right? So that's probably the things you want. You want an emotional state. And why do you want it? We wanted to dig a little bit, at least 3 layers deep. Some people say, oh, I wanted a bigger house. Why? Why a bigger house? Because right now my house is a little small. I feel cramped. Okay. And maybe you might buy a bigger house. I feel more achieved. Okay. And why I need a bigger house to prove stuff like that. We wanted to dig a little bit deeper. And what will happen if I don't get it now? Right? This is the questions that we can always ask ourselves when we are not a lack of motivation. And also, what happens if I do get it now? What would I feel? What would I feel? As if this thing has already been achieved. Whatever you want is there. It's here. It's already yours. What happens? And then what can I do to get what I want? Again, we do not want to translate this into just merely material things or superficial things. It could be anything. Mostly, I would say it is evidently, it is a emotional state that you want. For example, we want a promotion. Why? Because we want the promotion. We wanted the emotion of being recognized. We want the challenge being achieved. We want that emotion. And that is disguised as the promotion or other things. Yeah. And what must I overcome? That is like a reverse engineer the steps that you have to take. This is a very simple formula. What do I want? Why do I want it? And what will happen if I don't get it now? And what happens if I don't do get it? Yeah, you can follow that. Another thing of emotional intelligence is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand, to recognize your emotions of other people, and to understand people from their perspective and put yourself in their shoes. Not just like me, thinking, okay, this is me, this is my situation. How can you do this? How can they do this? How they're supposed to do this? This is a very toxic way to start a conversation, to start a thinking. And empathy actually may give you the ability to understand other people's emotional state, understand their situation, so you can in turn support them to make them understand. I think all great leaders are empathetic leaders. The commanding mode has long been abandoned. Commanding and all do not work anymore. Empathetic is the new way to do it. And people with empathy are good at recognizing feelings of others. And sometimes even those feelings are not even obvious, because you have this empathetic ability to understand. I know I've been in your situation. I understand, okay, you just have a family situation. You have a challenging situation. I know that. I've been there, done that. Let me help you. Empathetic people are usually very good managing their relationships because they do not assume they're better. They know what it's be like to be in this situation. So they always like to relate to them, to the other people. Another thing is overly judgmental or jumping into the conclusion too quickly. That is another thing that you want to avoid, because empathetic people always thinking other people's situation specifically. Empathy, put in a very plain term, is put your shoes in others and try to think and feel from other people's perspective. Social skills. This is something not easy. A lot of us are born with poor social skills, myself included. the ability to interact and communicate with others effectively. And social skill really help us to become a better boss, to become better leaders. And lack of could make us to be isolated and to become a lone wolf, right? And we all know that the feeling is not pleasant at all because we are social animals. We are social animals. We need to be sociable. We need to be living with, mingle with other people. Not necessarily mean that you need approval from everybody, but still you need that level of social coherence. And we all know that the people with higher emotional intelligence, they are pretty good social team players and they're very sociable and they are able to initiate the conversation and maintain the conversation and building the relationships. They do not always like thinking things from their perspective and being selfish. And they also want to help other people shine rather than focus on their own interest. I learned this in the hard way. Now that I know that a lot of highly skilled and high proficient people, they're actually wanting other people to be better. They always boost you up. They always want you shine instead of the focus and the credit, the highlight on them. Yeah. Emotional intelligence can be a key to success in your life, especially career. This is very important. It is the ability to manage you and the people working around you. And people looking at your emotional intelligence very easily. They look at whether you have social skills or not, whether you are empathetic, whether you are just a jerk, so to speak. You only care about your own KPIs, do not care about other people, or whether you are moody, you do not, be bothered by those situations. People judge, or measure one's emotional intelligence consciously or subconsciously. Good news is it can be reverse engineered, it can be learned, it's developed, and it is a skill. It is a skill. It has to be learned. It's not born with. Some people may be born with a higher matrix, and some people are not. But for those who are not, like me, this good news is first thing we have to have the awareness. We know we are lack of something, and then we know what to do. And we take measures step by step. Take the simplest steps. How to improve it? Observe how you react to people. Normally, we just thinking and seeing things from our own eyes. We never probably hardly see other people from their perspective. This is questions that we can ask ourselves. Do you rush to judgment before knowing the facts? We do not want to jump into conclusions very fast. That is poor judgment. And stereotype is easy. Making assumptions surely is even easier. But if we want to have higher EQ, don't do those things. And look at your environment. Sometimes we are overly concerned about our achievements and we want it to be humble and we want to give others the chance to shine. I think generally for most of the Chinese people, this is not a problem. But we wanted to distinguish that whether we are genuinely humble or we just wanted to fly under the radar and to not let other people pay attention to us. This is very different. And also do a self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is pretty important. Do one in the morning, do one before you go to bed. I mean, not necessarily do those clinical emotional intelligence tests by those psychologists, but at least we know what to work on. We know our weaknesses. We know what areas I've been having some challenges. I keep having this pattern of frustrations, and maybe that is the area that I could, seek help or find a coach or read some books or at least find some resources there. Yeah, are you willing to accept that you're not perfect? We're not all perfect. It is okay. It is much courageous to acknowledge that than just fake it. And also examine how you react to stressful situations. We have in our modern world, in the business, in career, in our life in general, we have lots and lots of stressful situations. I think stressful situations are basically the flow model, the challenge, and your ability goes in disproportion. Your challenge is too high and your ability do not catch up and you are overwhelmed. And basically, that is the only reason. So how can we handle that? It is basically that simple challenge and ability. So if we are running into challenges, we do not want to always blame the external factors. We wanted to look inside. Is there anything that I can do to take accountability so we could at least get our emotion under control? And then when you have a calmer mind, we have a calmer emotional state, then solution can come up. Responsibility, accountability, very important. It's easy to point fingers to other people. It's very easy to blame other people. Of sometimes, I would say most of the time, other people need to take the blame, of course, especially in a job. Some people do screw up, but also, do we do 100% our portion? Do we take all the accountability? Not that we take all the blame, but it's like at least we have to do 100% what we can do to the maximum. Then the results we wanted to detach. If we do hurt someone's feelings, it is brave to apologize directly. It is a coward way to dodge the situation. There's a very good show called Untold, Malice in Palace, talking about in 2004, the Detroit Pistons and Indiana Pacers. There's a famous riot happening that night. It was one match before the championship. It is actually an emotional intelligence went wrong. Roger Miller lost the only championship ring. Yeah, it was very good. It's on Netflix. I strongly recommend. That's a very good show. Yeah, it's called Untold, Malice in Palace. I forgot. It was the old stadium of Pistons in Detroit. Emotional intelligence and awareness of your actions and feelings and how they affect those around you. We wanted to have the self-awareness of our actions and our behaviors, and especially our feelings. Everything we pursue, almost everything we pursue, is about feelings. It is about feelings. When you feel bad, you don't want to do anything. You feel bad. If you feel good, you can do a lot of things, and you generally feel even better, right? So emotional intelligence, if we ignore this part, other parts of our life could topple too. And this probably is one of the most important things to control, to put our emotions under control, under some leash. Do not let our emotions go wild. And we know that those people who have anger issues, who have emotional disturbance, they generally do not achieve anything. If they do, they can burn them overnight because emotional is really like a double-edged sword. Yeah. We wanted to value other people, listen to their wants and needs. In the communication course that I teach, the main theory that I propose is that when we are communicating with others, instead of talking about how great I am, how good I am, me, we always want to turn the table, thinking about our audience, thinking about our audience, you. And so we are able to empathize or identify with them at different levels. This is very important. We understand ourselves, we understand them, so we identify different emotional needs so we can give them different support. And when we give them support, we win their support back. We build better relationships. We move forward. You don't want to tread them when they're most vulnerable. When they have this emotional need, you ignore that. That is not a good leadership. That's not good communication. If you haven't got the book, I strongly recommend you to grab one. Do not buy used one. This is the one I learned in the hard way, because used one, a lot of those are old versions, old editions. It was a little bit too academic. It's just like reading academic papers. I believe the newer version is better put in the layman terms. It's easier to read. Yeah.